excited to see all of you today. Hi, I'm excited to see all of you today. Thank you for everyone joining from across the world. I'd like to extend a special welcome to this special event at Stockholm+50, hosted jointly by 3 organizations: the World Food Forum, powered by Global Youth, the Youth Committee of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, or FAO, and Extreme Tech Challenge. My name is Victoria Slivkoff, and I am the Executive Managing Director of Extreme Tech Challenge, or XTC in short. I'm really delighted to be your host today for today's session on Agri-Food Tech Innovations for a Healthy Planet, how we're going to be creating opportunities and empowering the next generation of agripreneurs. The World Food Forum is an independent, youth-led movement and global network initiated by the Youth Committee of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, with the goal of empowering youth to transform our agri-food systems to create a better food future for everybody. And Extreme Tech Challenge is the world's largest startup competition and community for startups advancing innovations to build a better planet. As our organization was launched to address the UN SDGs, I couldn't be more enthusiastic about our former partnership with the World Food Forum and FAO, now in its 2nd year as we work together to advance sustainable agri-food systems globally. And today we're going to be showcasing real-world solutions from award-winning entrepreneurs who are harnessing the power of technology to achieve the SDGs. And also, all of you audience members will have an opportunity to engage directly by asking your questions. So please use the chat function to say hello, where you're joining from, and also pose any questions you have to the panelists. We'll also be featuring organizations and investors who are supporting these purpose-driven startups. And they're going to be sharing their meaningful tips and insights to aspiring young entrepreneurs and innovators who would like to change the world. And finally, we're going to have a special announcement from the co-founder of Extreme Tech Challenge, the legendary Silicon-based investor, Silicon Valley-based venture capitalist and entrepreneur, Bill Tai. Before we begin, I'd like to offer our sincere congratulations to the inaugural cohort of the World Food Forum Young Scientists Group. And these are exceptional youth who will provide their scientific knowledge and expertise to advance various initiatives of the World Food Forum. Today is also a day of celebration of innovation, entrepreneurship, and global partnerships. So I hope you enjoy today's program. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce a leader who is passionate about innovation in support of the Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular, transforming our global agri-food systems, which really, let's face it, are in need of drastic transformation. As a judge for both the Extreme Tech Challenge and the World Food Forum Startup Innovation Award, she is truly invested in empowering and supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs that will lead the innovation we need in support of healthy diets and a healthy planet. I am so pleased to introduce our special guest to deliver today's opening remarks, Beth Bechtel, the Deputy Director General for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Victoria. It's so great to be with you and with everyone gathered today to really celebrate this enduring partnership between the Extreme Tech Challenge and the World Food Forum. It's also especially great to be here with you in anticipation of what will now be the 2nd edition of the World Food Forum Startup Innovation Awards, powered by XTC. I'm really excited to be back to celebrate and recognize the immense potential of youth-led innovations to help really transform the way that we produce, distribute, and consume food. And I use the word transform not very lightly, but very seriously, because that's what we urgently need to do to fix our agri-food systems in a way that means they can provide food for everyone on the planet. And remember, there is no net shortage of food. It's our systems that produce it and get it to people that don't really today work as well as they should. In fact, we need a very deep-rooted and systemic shift in our food systems to provide healthy diets to the over 800 million people who are hungry today, and to the additional 2 billion people the world will have by 2050. But rather than focusing on the figures about hunger, malnutrition, and climate change, and the uncertainty that these challenges bring with them, today is all about solutions, and some that are already sparking catalytic change. As a woman born and raised on a multi-generational family grain farm in rural Indiana, and having dedicated my entire career to the agricultural sector, what I know for sure is that we cannot rely on business as usual. We really must fundamentally change how we operate, how we innovate, how we partner, and how we invest. Innovation is not just about technology or inventions, though. It's also about disrupting the status quo and finding new ways of thinking and working. We need to deliver innovations that are both actionable and sustainable, and above all, that will support the lives and livelihoods of people in harmony, as we say, with our planet. At the World Food Forum, we believe that innovations can come from anywhere and can come from anyone. From a university student applying to the Transformative Research Challenge, or to a farmer who wants to find a way to mitigate and end animal diseases in his sheep or goat herd. All you need is an idea, passion, and tenacity to make this real change happen. And I truly believe that the best of our future innovations will come from young people, like all of you who are with us today. Today is about giving youth space and support to develop and scale up new business ideas. And with your creativity and ingenuity, it is still within our grasp to make progress and ultimately achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in these remaining 8 years ahead of the 2030 Agenda goal line. With this in mind, the World Food Forum and the Extreme Tech Challenge have brought together top global startups and innovators who are leading agri-food systems transformation in support of healthy diets and a healthy planet. Thanks so much to the exceptional panel that has been gathered for this very special Stockholm+50 event. We will showcase real-world solutions that harness the power of technology to ultimately, again, achieve the SDGs. And we will highlight another panel, I understand, of really distinguished speakers made up of organizations and investors who are supporting purpose-driven startups. All of our guests, I know, will have some really meaningful tips and advice to aspiring young entrepreneurs and innovators who have a spark inside them to change the world. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we are really excited for the second year of the World Food Forum Startup Innovation Awards. Last year's awards enabled us to find and elevate some really extraordinary innovations, and I'm so excited to see great minds come together again for this new and improved second edition. We cannot deny the link between climate change, the climate crisis, and access to safe, nutritious food and healthy diets. And despite the recognized and urgent need to reduce emissions, increase food security, and adapt to climate change, more must be done to also increase and protect biodiversity and to improve the overall state of our diets. This is why the theme for this year's awards focuses on healthy diets and a healthy planet. If you have a startup that provides an actionable solution to minimize and mitigate the impacts of climate change while simultaneously increasing global access to healthy diets, we encourage you to apply to the 2022 World Food Forum Startup Innovation Awards. You can find all of the details on the WFF website. I think the team will share that here in the chat and make sure that you have all the information that you need. But what I would say is please be bold and do not miss this opportunity to scale up your businesses. This is the chance for new ideas to be turned into solutions for real world problems. I am a firm believer that entrepreneurs and startups are the ones who will unlock the innovations that will allow us to reach a world free from poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. I'll close with just one final thought, Victoria, and let's remember that our agri-food systems are the most powerful way for us to optimize human health and environmental sustainability. And it's only by transforming them through ideas like the ones that will surface today and over the course of the next few months that people, young people, have in their minds right now, that we can really create a better future for everyone. Thanks very much. And Victoria, back over to you.
Thank you so much, Beth, for your inspiring words, especially what you said about innovation does lie everywhere and it comes from everybody. So thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to show a really great video to kick off our discussion.
Why actually invest in your company? This is a very competitive market, and my assumption will be that the margins will go down as competition increases. So why should I invest on you?
Like I need to pause and create a little bit of suspense in the room. The winner of the entire innovation challenge is
For our first panel today, we're going to be featuring youth-led innovations for a healthy planet. This is a very interactive session, so please put your questions in chat and we'll get to as many of them as possible. First, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Clarity Mapengo, a World Food Forum Young Scientist Group representative. Clarity, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clarity Mapengo, and thank you so much for the introduction, Victoria. And I am here as a World Food Forum representative, specifically for the Young Scientist Group. And I look forward to this amazing, enriching discussion and conversation with a lot of brilliant minds around here. And my profession, I'm a food scientist, and I love innovation. I also have a startup that's in an early stage called Fruity X Fusion, which is converting fruit and vegetable waste into biodegradable packaging material for the food service industry. So I'm really excited to be here and I look forward to engaging with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarity. And our second speaker today was a winner of last year's World Food Forum Startup Innovation Award, powered by Extreme Tech Challenge. I'd like to welcome Rebecca White. She's the CEO of Pebble Labs. Rebecca?
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Victoria. I'm so happy to be here representing the World Food Forum Innovation Awards. Pebble Labs is based in northern New Mexico, which is in the United States. We're in a town called Los Alamos, and we are creating safe, effective biological solutions using microbes to protect crops from threats to crop yields. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Rebecca. And our final panelist is the director of BioMio. I'd like to welcome Alexandra Posada.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexandra Posada from Colombia, director of BioMio. At BioMio, we're creating the conditions for regenerative agriculture to grow while securing a fair market for small-scale farmers in Colombia and the Andean ecosystem. Working in the developing world, we believe we need to have a systemic approach to tackle the many obstacles that prevent sustainable food production systems from having a significant impact. So to do this, we're strengthening traditional knowledge and preventing food loss by producing high added value spirits that from local fruits that no longer have a market. We're also unlocking the power of soil through microbiology and creating our own locally sourced peat-free substrate for seedlings. And we're developing a blockchain platform to map the current agricultural landscape to create trust among consumers and institutions and diversify farmers' incomes. But we cannot do all of this alone, so we've created our own regional network of partners, partnering with universities and organic input producers to create the tools needed to make production sustainable, efficient, and profitable for farmers and the ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra from BioMio. Now let's head to the first question for clarity. What do you see as the role of youth in agri-food system innovation? And particularly, how are you connecting that with your new role as part of the Young Scientist Group?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. That's an interesting question. And I think part of it has actually been touched by Beth earlier, where she spoke about how young people really bring about disruptive new ideas, new ways of doing things. So I think one of the key things why young people should actually be the integral part of innovation and transforming our agro systems is because of bringing about the new way of doing things, because you're having mindsets that are not attached or constrained by prior patterns of thought. So that makes them key in disrupting the status quo. And also the energy that young people have, apart from just being creative young minds, they're energetic, they're eager to do things, they're eager to try new ways of doing things, they are committed to different goals in sort of making a change, because this is the environment, the space that they grew up in, and they are seeing these problems that they want so badly to fix, wherein the older generation is somehow attached in a way to what was, and maybe they still feel it's working the way it is. But as young people, we're seeing how that has affected us and how we are preserving our planet, how we are living our lives. So we bring about that energy and that disruption and that creative space and mindset. So I definitely feel that young, innovative-led solutions are the key to transforming our agro spaces.
Well said, and it gives us a lot of hope that people like you are very enthusiastic about the mission that we're driving towards. And Rebecca, you pitched at our last year's Startup Innovation Challenge, and tell us about that experience and what have you done since then, and maybe what this experience has helped you to level up.
Thanks, Victoria. The participating in the competition was really amazing. Being exposed on a global stage like that, having the opportunity to tell our story to a much broader audience than we would normally have access to was really fantastic. The follow-up from the judges, they're truly interested in seeing the award nominees and winners be successful just beyond receiving or participating in the innovation awards. And being part of the XTC family has also been wonderful, being exposed to other opportunities and continuing to participate in this community of innovation and driving us all towards providing enough food for everyone on the planet has really been uplifting for us and motivational for us. In terms of leveling up, we have had significant interest, in particular from partners. So that was one of the things that we talked about in our challenge pitch, was that we were looking for partners, especially for our agricultural products. And we've had a lot of interest. So over 50 inquiries from partners around the globe, large companies, small companies, individuals, farmers, people who are looking to help us bring our solution to market and to make it real. So it's been really, really fantastic for us.
That's really great to hear. And hopefully, I think you said 50 inquiries, right? Just from showcasing you on stage, hopefully we can bring about that global visibility to more entrepreneurs this year. And for Alexandra, let's share with us one lesson you have learned during your entrepreneurship journey that every founder should know.
I would say never fear iteration. We have to work again and again. At first, we started with our model and we broke even in the first 6 months of delivering fresh regenerative produce to the city. And we would think we were already successful, but working in the developing world, there's serious obstacles and voids in order for us to be able to scale up. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, pinpointed what needs we had, what tools we needed to develop, what partnerships we needed to create, how to think outside the box to create an even stronger model that takes advantage of all the lessons learned of our first year of operation. So just iterating and iterating time and time again will bring you to a real integral and really a scalable solution as a social impact entrepreneur.
And it's really interesting because you all sit in different parts of the world, right? Building innovations and advancing entrepreneurship. How are you seeing about plugging into local ecosystems? What are some of the additional support that we can strengthen, that we can bring about in your particular geography? So let me go back to clarity on that.
I think some of the things that we can actually bring about is we have young people that are looking for support in terms of resources. So things like the XTC challenges are things that needs to be sort of in the region that I'm representing, which is Africa, because my startup is based in South Africa. You find that young people do not have access to different resources or platforms that allow them to present their ideas and be supported. So that's something that's really a key thing, because when young people don't have the support, then they think that they're not good enough, and then they sit on their ideas, and then we don't get to have the transformative aspect that we are looking to have. So that drive in young people is withered by not having the proper support systems and platforms to sort of envision and then bring their vision and dreams to light. So I think that's the key thing from my region. Thank you.
And Rebecca, you sitting in New Mexico?
Yeah, the thing that you've also helped us with is to recruit young people to our company. So we're a growing company. We want to support the local population, New Mexico, in terms of training ag technologists and scientists here in New Mexico. We have an 80% attrition rate, which means folks that are getting these degrees are leaving the state 80% of the time. And so helping us keep that local talent, especially we have a very high indigenous population here in northern New Mexico, helping keep them home and have good jobs for them is critically important for us as part of our mission. And excuse me, participating with XDC and the World Food Forum and the Youth Committee has helped us elevate that.
I think also what you said about economic development is a really important element, right, of the work that we do. Over to you, Alexandra. Share with us a little bit about the ecosystem in Colombia, where you're at.
So here we've really focused on trying to examine at a soil level the microbiology of the native Páramo system, and trying to find microorganisms that will make our organic inputs more effective. But all these kinds of research takes time, and it takes money, and it takes equipment. So we partner with a regional university with their microbiology department. And before we partnered with them, they really didn't have any ongoing research in terms at a soil level, because here in Colombia, there hasn't been that emphasis. But now we have 5 ongoing research projects with different students that have created their thesis to see which microbes are the best for nitrogen fixing, for phosphorus fixing, what are the elements we need to create the best kind of seedling substrate. So really empowering young scientists has allowed us to really think outside the box and try to create the tools that would have never been created here because there is no government or institutional support.
Mhm. Yeah, so let me get to Beth for your question.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. And it's really so impressive to hear the feedback and the comments that Clarity, Alexandra, and Rebecca are providing. I have a question maybe about youth recognition and understanding of the Sustainable Development Goals themselves. So much of what we are trying to move here as a collective effort is this achievement of this global agenda. And sometimes I wonder how informed, how connected do you see the efforts and the aspirations that you all are pursuing to these 17 goals? And do you think that young people are today well enough aware of these priorities? Clearly, the issues that surround them are very front and center in everyone's mind. But I'm very curious, as an advocate for the entirety of the United Nations, that we know, are we getting our message across? And are we making that point very well to this next generation? And then my second question, Victoria, which maybe goes specifically to Rebecca, is I think we're always looking for how we keep making the experience of this partnership better. So what, based on your experience of having been through the first Innovation Awards competition, what would you encourage us to maybe try to do differently or to improve upon or to consider as we move into the second year? Maybe Rebecca, maybe you can start.
Sure.
And that's a great question, Beth. I'd love to hear more about that.
So I'll start with the second question and then go to the first so everybody else can answer the first one, if that's okay. So, excuse me, I think from the experience perspective, the things that we really liked and that were super beneficial to us were the social media support. So we were provided with a lot of templates that allowed us to really highlight publicly being part of the competition, and then to announce that we had received it to our own network. I think the thing that struck me that I wasn't sort of prepared for was the follow-up from the judges afterwards. They truly are super interested in the success of the companies that participate in this competition. And I think a little bit of guidance there would be helpful, right? Because I was getting follow-ups and I wasn't honestly quite sure what to do with it and how to best leverage that interest. Figured it out, right? Eventually, but that would be helpful. And the second thing I would say is there were some questions that were consistent across the categories and across companies. And the XTC team does a really great job helping you think about preparing your presentation and helping you try to get as much information across as possible. And I think a set of standard questions would be helpful. I know that there was one question that I stumbled a bit with around our team, and I still kick myself. I wish I would have answered it better. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, can you respond to the first part, and then we'll go to Clarity and Alexandra?
Sure. So in terms of youth awareness of the SDGs, I think it's mixed in our experience. So I have children in school here, and they do a lot of climate forward projects, right? But they don't frame it around the SDGs. And as a parent participating in that, I've encouraged them to frame it around this global language that the UN has created around goals to get us to where we need to be in terms of preserving biodiversity and feeding people and equity and all of those things. One thing that we found was, instead of saying, you know, we touch on these 4, 5, or 6 SDGs, we picked one and went really in depth with it. So we picked SDG 2 and target 2.4, and we go very deep on that. And we have found that to be much more effective in terms of both communicating our own message, but also interacting with interns, for example, from local schools, to really get them interested. They're like, oh, this is really deep, right? And there's lots to this one SDG. And then it sort of gets them interested. And then we can say, okay, well, here are the other ones that we touch. What do you think of this?
Great, thanks. Clarity, can I go to you?
Yeah, that was an interesting question for sure, Beth. And I think I'm going to try and answer it in two parts. One part, which is my main area of work, which is research, working mostly in the tertiary education space. And then the other part is as a youth scientist group representative for the World Food Forum. So speaking from the tertiary experience, one thing that I've realized is that there is so much momentum going on in terms of young people getting to understand and want to champion the SDGs. So I think in my experience, in the environment that I've been in, there is more, we have more young people being involved and understanding really what the SDGs stand for and how they can be part of them. And one example that I can give is some of the research projects that students get to do. They get to be asked, okay, which SDG is this project that you're proposing tackling? So then that also gives them space to sort of go and research about SDGs and see where they fit. And then that's really something which is positive, which I really appreciate, which is happening. And then as a young scientist group representative, I've been engaging with a lot of young people within the World Food Forum. And one key thing that came out is that this is spreading like a wildfire among young people within who are probably in undergrad or high school going upwards, and they have a better understanding of the SDGs and how they can improve our way of life, how they can improve our health and everything. So those conversations and people being keen to say, can I also bring about this other young group from my community, makes me realize that we are having a lot of like nuclear cells around the globe that are really like making this go out and about and making people aware, not just aware, but feel the need to champion the SDGs and make a difference in their communities. Thank you.
Yeah, terrific. Alexandra?
So here in rural Colombia, where we're based and where I live, there's a very big digital divide, and it was made like very obvious, especially during the pandemic, in terms of like the school system, the level of lack of connectivity in the rural areas here is really, really big, and that creates a really big obstacle for these kinds of like initiatives to be communicated. There's a natural alignment, I feel. If you go to the public schools here, they teach things that align with the SDGs, but there isn't like saying explicitly, these are the SDGs, like the students don't have that in their minds. Once you reach more of the university level, then that starts changing. But I think our main obstacles are like connectivity. And I do feel there's a language barrier. I know everything's translated and everything, but still there's I feel there's still a language barrier where English is like the main point of access to you really get that kind of information. So we have, it's more of a structural kind of gap that we have here that makes it difficult to overcome.
Yeah, very, very insightful. And on that digital front, you hope that, Victoria, this might be a place where some new digital solutions and services and connectivity opportunities may even come to the surface. So Victoria, back over to you.
Thank you, Beth. How are we doing on time? Do we have any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much for all your panelists and all your great questions. We look forward to more information, stay in touch and follow your journey. Thank you, Clarity, Alexandra, and Rebecca. Great, and with that, I'd like to introduce our next panel, which features organizations and investors who are supporting these purpose-driven startups and entrepreneurs that we just heard from. And they're going to be sharing meaningful tips and advice to aspiring young entrepreneurs and innovators who would like to change the world. and advanced technologies that help to transform the agri-food systems. So with that, I am so pleased to introduce our first panelist, Fabrice Stern. He is a senior partner of coverage at Decisive Capital Management. Fabrice, would you like to say a few words to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Fabrice. I'm French and Swiss. I'm based in Switzerland. I've been a finance professional for the last 25 years, mainly large investment banks and wealth management. And in the side, I'm also the co-founder and CEO of a foundation. Who basically we provide coaching and financing to early stage social entrepreneur. The company I've joined recently is called Decisive Capital. It's a multi-family office based in Switzerland. And we provide services to large families and as well with a DNA on private deals. And private deals, we mean tech, we mean real estate, and we mean as well private equity. And in that context, we did some investment recently last year for some of our clients into a company called Pharma Business Network, which we might come back later on this one. And I think the company here is young. We've been operating since 6 years, based in Switzerland, expanding internationally, and we're very much obviously in the wave of how can the tech can be tech for good. And not only it's all about IR and making money for clients, it's also about what is the positive impact we have. And it's a challenge, and we are basically on that challenge, trying to maximize returns for clients and as well having a positive impact in the world. That's in a nutshell. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Fabrice. And then we'll dig into that a little bit from the investor perspective. And our next panelist is Richard Alexander Royal, Senior Economic Affairs Officer, who is a lead of science, technology, and innovations for the SDGs at the UN Department of Economics and Social Affairs. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Victoria. First of all, a big thank you to the organizer of this fantastic event. I really think that's exactly what we need for the SDGs. At UN headquarters, I'm leading work on science, technology, and innovation for the SDGs. In fact, I'm part of the team that organized the Rio+20 conference and the process that led to the SDGs. So I'm so pleased to see how it is percolated into all kinds of parts of this corner. If you Google, you have a billion hits on Sustainable Development Goals and another billion on SDGs. Try it out. So this process led to some new entry points for scientists, engineers, and innovators at UN headquarters, something totally new. Before you had to be, as Beth said, an eminent person. Now you just need a good idea and put in the time to get engaged. One such entry point is the UN Technology Facilitation Mechanism, or in short, TFM, which is the main UN instrument in support of science, technology, and innovation for the SDGs. It really brings together thousands of stakeholders from academia, NGOs, and private sector, 46 UN entities. We're very proud to have FAO as a very strong partner in this, and all these activities ultimately culminate in the SDI forum, an annual forum that also channels this discussions and some of the inputs and solutions back to consideration for member states. There are many parts to this TFM. Maybe we get to that in the discussions, but let me just say these last few years completely transformed also UN headquarters in terms of what it means to engage with innovators and scientists and others. It moved the debate completely away from regulatory questions to facilitating innovators, seeing what do they really need in terms of member states and stakeholder actions. And this is in key areas of sustainability, energy, water, climate change, biodiversity, and of course, food and agriculture. So with this in mind, you can imagine how excited I am to be part of this panel.
Well, I'm very excited to learn more about this TFM. I just did a quick Google, technology facilitation mechanism. I feel like that's really the channel where we can connect the dots and bring a lot of innovation to actual in the field deployment. So thank you, Richard. And we want to dig into that in a short bit. But let's loop in our last panelist into this conversation. I'm so pleased to introduce Jean-Michel Wassard. He is the Global Practice Lead for Agriculture and Food Security at Kemonix International. Welcome, Jean-Michel. Oh, you're on mute.
There you go. So yes, thank you for having me. Kemonix, I think this year sponsored the XTC Challenge, and I really enjoyed participating as a panelist, in selecting and identifying, new ventures. I was impressed by the diversity of interventions, and we can talk about that later on. And I really enjoyed the previous panel. A lot of it resonated with the work that Kemonix has been doing for nearly 50 years now in improving food systems worldwide, amongst part of its mission, which also includes health and education. Many things have changed with Kemonix, and this is why the youth question is so important. Youth entrepreneurship, this is something that has in itself scaled over the past years. The involvement of youth, their leadership in bringing about innovation. Our work at Kemonix brings us in the field. I mean, it can be in Uganda, it can be in countries like Colombia or Peru. It can also be in very remote areas where innovations are brought about. And our job is to facilitate its emergence and make it happen. Over the past years, we've seen an acceleration in technological innovation, communication systems, but also, the involvement of youth and their uptake of technology gradually. Literacy has a lot of ways to make, but literacy and knowledge is actually coming to communities through their youth. And that's where the innovation actually happens. We have many, many examples of this. And I'll really be glad to share with you our experience in making these things happen. It's clear that over the past years, food system development has gone way beyond just basic productivity and scale. It's much more than that now. It involves, like we said, climate mitigation, it involves inclusion, it involves also nutrition, and all these domains have to be balanced, and that will happen through technology innovation and the involvement of youth at all levels of the food system. So looking forward to discuss about that with you.
Well, this is a great panel because we have perspectives from different directions, right? So I want to go back to Fabrice, you as an investor again. Decisive manages money for many family offices and high net worth individuals globally. As you see the new generation of these families, come up to leadership positions, what do they want to do in terms of making a lasting impact? And how are you helping them achieve those goals?
No, I think I love what I see with the new families on the impact space. I think it's a big shift. When I was talking to families and next generation a few years ago, it was all about capital preservation, and then usually the previous generation was still in the lead until very late. Now, what I'm seeing over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been touring a lot in conferences about family offices, about SDGs, about in Amsterdam, in La Hague, and you can see the sparkle in the eyes of the next gen whenever you talk about impact. There's no sparkle when you talk about US Treasury bonds. Thank God. There's no sparkle when you talk about an ETF, not without any name, on the S&P, on the Stockholm 50. Thanks God. I think obviously there's an asset allocation. One needs to be smart to preserve the capital over the long run, and strategic asset allocation is absolutely key. But how to populate this asset allocation over the long run. And now it's getting more and more about, hey, I'm happy to make returns, but likewise, I'm happy very much if these returns can also make impact. So there's no choice right now between having an impact and having positive return. For years, I've heard so many times, oh, but if I do good, I will lose on my returns. This is over. I mean, we have data over the last 3 years to show that you can have a positive impact, and guess what? You can have if not an improved, like likewise return, and that's I think that's the proof in the pudding. So I think when we talk to tech chain, it's obviously capital preservation. It's about how can we ensure we have positive impact. It's about impact, and obviously impact is a tough cookie. Be it on the philanthropy, if you only do VC philanthropy, if you do impact first, if you do financial first. I mean, we all know the various cycles of impact along the line of how do you support. And I love what you guys have done on the UN SDGs. To be honest, when we set up the foundation, I basically took the 17 SDGs. It was 2018, Richard. So it's a few years ago, and I was like, how can I be smart about defining my impact universe? 17 as well, Richard. I thought I will never be able to remember by heart the 17 edges. Every time I was pitching, I was thinking I used to forget 4 or 5 of them. And I really look silly. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it for me, 5 impact theme. And then I basically regroup 17 in 5. That made it easy. And obviously it makes our life so much easier. And a massive applause of what you guys have done years ago, because that's basically, it's all about, the information, and it has to be public, it has to be easy to understand. And I think what you guys have done with the 17 UNSDG, it's all about sending the message forward, because there's massive capital on our side, there's massive needs on the other side, and we'd love to be the boot, to be the bridge between the capital, which we know where it is, it's our clients, and then the social entrepreneurs. We desperately need financing. They have great ideas. Usually they don't know how to pitch it, to be honest, or at least they used to. So we help them to pitch it, and we used our skill set is basically the skill gap. And then we are very good in tech. So if we combine tech, impact for good, then it's we have meaningful and impactful conversation with the next gen. Back to you, Victoria.
And Fabrice, very well put. You have massive amount of capital on one hand, and you have massive amount of innovation on the other, and Decisive is a bridge, one of many bridges that make that happen. So over connecting to Richard's work, how can we extend that bridge better? Because I know there's so many youth entrepreneurs and impact-driven founders are thinking about, clarity. Earlier you talked about access to resources, right? How can we build that bridge better, in your opinion, Richard?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very pleased for what Fabrice said. I think you're one of those many pioneers who actually make the SDGs happen, right? That's exactly what the idea was in making the SDG development much more participatory, a very complicated, lengthy process, with the result that everyone could accept. But everyone also in their own work uses their own lens on these SDGs. So, as you mentioned, you have your 5 boxes. Scientists have concentric circles. They're very complicated setups. Whatever works, and whatever works at the national level, whatever works at in the sector that people work. So, obviously that was the whole point of it. And I think that was a big success of having such aspirational goals, very different from what we had in the UN before, which had everything much more top-centric. So, that was part of the idea of this last decade in trying to create these new entry points against all odds of, hierarchies, political sensitivities and questions. So I think how to make the bridge from those SDGs to the actual innovators is, of course, a big question. Our technology facilitation mechanism, as you see the name, what does it facilitate really in the end of the day? it is a compromise, just like the SDGs. It tried to be sort of the pinnacle where, you know, all these other great work by FAO, by 46 other UN entities, by the stakeholder groups, by organized science communities, by, you know, innovator challenges, by initiatives like XTC, that they can come together and have yet another feature, and people can see what others are doing. They may come up with partnerships with new ideas. And that's also why our innovation competition has always been in the context of this mechanism, has always been you know, building on what is there. We didn't want to have another innovation competition just, you know, just for the SDGs. So we build it on what's there. As you can see, I mean, we're very proud that one of the panelists, you know, Pebble Labs, was one of those innovators that was featured this year. There was another one from the World Food Forum Startup Innovation, BioBondi, also with exciting work on how to use solar biomanufacturing to capture CO2 and convert it to other products. So we have some, this is what the facilitation part of this really is about. It tries to bring this discussion to a much higher level. And you know, you can see it in the avalanche of initiatives and partnerships. If you had come to New York 10 years ago, this topic was more or less a forbidden topic. Forgive me for using this word, but I think it's pretty true. Since the 1970s, we didn't have any serious progress on these big questions. And we know that innovation is what it's all about. I mean, you don't need to be Schumpeterians to know, you know, we need to do things differently. We have all the assessments. I mean, in our team, for example, we do a lot of assessment that try to convince donors and people who are not engaged in this yet why this is really relevant. I mean, you can, I don't have to cite the IPCC report. I mean, it says, for example, half of ambitious greenhouse gas emission reductions towards this 1.5 degree target. If you do something very ambitious, has to come from technological innovation, and the rest is also innovations, but it's, you know, behavioral and institutional kind. So we work on various levels, and that is what the facilitation part is really. So of course, we don't do the hands-on work of the innovators, but we try to give them that platform and try to help them find the partners and work with those who, you know, like Fabrice and Jean-Michel, who actually can guide them in the next direction.
Very well said. And let me extend that bridge over now to Jean-Michel. And there was a question that came up in chat is, yes, we talked about capital investment from Fabrice to technology facilitation mechanism that Richard talked about, connecting technologies to actual field work. And now going over to you, Jean-Michel, how do we ensure that there's you know, enough distribution, right, where you can provide greater access to everybody instead of, you know, the haves and have nots? You know, how are you doing that work at Kemonix?
I think that's a very, again, good question, and actually good point. And that really hits the heart of what Kemonix actually does. Our job is to scale innovation and make it accessible to the widest possible population. And that itself is very difficult, because achieving full adoption of good ideas is not that easy. And it was interesting during the competition when I was hearing the pitches, I would often come in and say, you know, have you understood exactly how you should package your innovation to make it accessible to the widest base possible? If you really want to have a development goal impact, you have to understand that you have to scale to a very different population than you think, and maybe adjust your distribution mechanism. The good news is that through programs like Kemonix, organizations like Kemonix manage, what people don't know is we actually manage very important, what you could call scaling funds or investment funds. Annually, Kemonix, through its variety of projects, manages nearly $50 million worth of blended finance support to support innovation across countries like Colombia, Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, and many more resources allocated to facilitating access to finance and local investment fund, support to local entrepreneurs who can be linked with technology, innovators. And so when we talk about bridge, I mean, we're kind of the last mile connector to make this connection and facilitate scaling. And I think if there's one contribution organizations like ours can have is to work with innovators and explain to them how to scale and how to scale in developing countries in a profitable way. And we've had many successes on that. I mean, this is how we work. And some of these impacts can be very large. Something people don't really know is that a company like Kemonix was at the origin of the development of the Rwanda coffee label that you find at Starbucks today. It was an idea in the year 2000, and that's how it started, through a varieties of technical support, adaptations, and things like that that go to scale. And so we're very happy to have participated to XTC, and I've seen in the finalists and even other innovations that have a great potential and that we will be looking into.
This is great. I feel like we're really connecting the dots today, Beth. You know, the purpose of a convening like that is really to bring the community together, different stakeholders. And I'm excited that you're excited about meeting each other and how we can better build that bridge. So thank you so much for this great discussion. I know everybody's going to be reaching out to you on LinkedIn and connect and further follow your journey. So thank you, Fabrice Stern, Richard Rell, and Jean-Michel Wassard for this great conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria.
Thank you for having us, Victoria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And with that, now we have a special announcement and some great words from our co-founder of Extreme Tech Challenge, a legendary Silicon Valley-based venture capitalist and entrepreneur, Bill Tai. As a VC with over 20 IPOs from startups he has founded, Bill really knows about investment, helping to find those entrepreneurs that can really carry an idea forward and bring about global impact. With that, welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you, Victoria, and thank you, everybody, for being part of this. And guys, all I can say is that I am so honored to be a part of the community that is you, and to see all this energy around taking all of the things that we've done in technology for decades and decades. And Victoria mentioned I've had over 20 companies go public. I started as a silicon chip designer in Silicon Valley in 1984 and ended up funding many waves of things. So a lot of silicon chips and then communications equipment. I started an ISP in 1995 that became data centers around the world, and then started funding things that were the user interface on top of them, things like Twitter and Zoom and Canva, and more recently, data science. Over the years, as I started to see what is it that works, it's basically lowering the friction to good things, making them highly replicable and highly scalable. And I think part of what we're doing here with this contest is bringing folks like you together to lower the friction to the communities of interest and the technologies and the funding to make these things real, because there's so many people out there. I think the other thing that's really changed, all of the activity in the 80s was around a bunch of people that could move electrons around a piece of molten sand. And that's where all the energy was. And you had to be kind of a physicist and, think about weird things with a few other people in dark rooms. And now the entrepreneurs are everywhere. So as we're seeing on this call, the kinds of things that can be world-changing innovation are coming from everywhere, and I think need support from a lot of other things than people building computer systems or routers or hubs or switches. So that is what this is all about. And to see everybody on this call that with the backgrounds that you have and the entrepreneurs with the ideas that they have that are solving real problems is really heartwarming to see. because we only live once, and we've got to fix the problems that we have all created in our generation and help the young people do the same thing and get rid of the things that we did wrong. So Victoria, is there anything else you want me to touch on? That was a lot packed in a few sentences.
I think it's great, but maybe top 3 advice to entrepreneurs watching. How do you scale? How do you leverage the power community? How do you get to the next step? You're talking about de-risking.
Yeah, well, I think so. The philosophy around the contest, which will answer some of those questions, it did start around simpler products. This company kind of got going in the era of mobile apps coming to market. And the idea was, how do you give a product a lot of visibility? That's one, because people have to know about it to want to use it. 2 is, how do you give a company an advantage in scaling it without blowing a hole in the balance sheet and having to raise infinite amounts of capital? Because sometimes you can put yourself in a situation where you have a good product, but the capital need is so high that you can never get to the other side where you can express itself. And then the last part that we wanted to design for was to surround young entrepreneurs that might have had really good instinct about what to build, what product might solve a problem, but they hadn't built a business before. So part of the mission of the contest was to create like a little network effect where people that understood the potholes and the speed bumps that would be ahead for any company would be around to surround the entrepreneurs, to give them advice to get to the other side. So I think it's those 3 things. Find really good ways without having to blow lots of money on marketing to efficiently find your customer base. That's number 1. Number 2, design your business model so that the capital need comes in manageable chunks to de-risk to get to the other side. And instead of trying to boil the ocean and doing it all at once. And then lastly, make sure you surround yourself with people that have solved the general problems that you will face before, so that you have a sounding board to think these things through, and you don't have to learn them by yourself the hard way on the best project of your life. You want someone to have gone through that before to help make it frictionless for you. And the way to think about capital, I think mobile apps were very different because you do a kind of like a one-shot funding to get a product out there and just see if people used it. And the distribution was already taken care of because of Apple and Samsung stores and things like that. And I think in this case, the way to look at building a business is you have 8, 10, 15 risks in front of you that could kill you. So how do you take capital and apply that capital to knocking off each of those risks one at a time? And if by the end, you only had really like 5 things that could really just kill you, and you've eliminated them with a little bit of capital and experimentation, by definition, you are alive, right? So often I'll have my startups basically lay out those things like, what are the scenarios where we die? And then we'll just say, okay, how do we get around those? And at the end, we're there, and so we don't know how big we're going to be, but we're there, and then if you live long enough, you have many more chances to unlock and get big if you can wait and paddle and just be there when the big wave comes. So that was also a lot of advice, but that's how I look at the world, and seems to have helped a few of my companies.
Very wise words from a seasoned investor who was the first check in big names today like Zoom and Canva. So, Bill, keep paddling, catch the next wave, and be ready to surf.
Wave of the day. I got the wave of the day at Kelly Slater Surf Ranch 2 days ago.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining this great conversation and also a great celebration of you, of innovation, entrepreneurship, and global partnerships. So stay tuned on the official launch announcement of the World Food Forum Startup Innovation Challenge, second edition, powered by Extreme Tech Challenge. I want to thank all of you for joining today. Stay connected. Have a great rest of your day, and see you all soon.
Thank you.